Hey, everybody, welcome to Podcast Deforming, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Clint Eastwood, where we watch every film directed by and or starring American filmmaker Clint Eastwood and explore how they speak to their moment in this one. The show's hosted by two guys. I'm one of the guys. My name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan.
He sure is, folks. We are equal guys.
He's doing a big wink, which I don't love, but I understand.
Yeah, he's doing a big wank. He's Britishly masturbating under the table.
I'm
or
neither
Australian.
Britishly nor masturbating. Yeah, you're right.
Do they say it? What about in Hong Kong? Do we know about in Hong Kong? Do Hong Kongers speaking English say wanking?
I would like to think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Nah. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I think a lot better than you. You were down for the count for a while. What happened?
I've been ill. I've been laid low by the demon Streptococcus aureus, or whatever it is. Aureus. Streptococcus aureus.
Hey.
They gave me a sore throat and they don't pay their workers enough.
That was their union. Trying to unionize over there in your throat because of the bad stuff you're doing. I
would love to get some kind of a climbing axe and try to just get some of this gunk out of my junk here. I've been on the antibiotics for days now.
Are you on a probiotic to counteract this? Are you
I'm
doing
on
one of those?
Florastor, which is a yeast. It's not a probiotic.
Allison Eastwood works.
Florastor. Oh, yeah. Allison Eastwood.
Oh,
I got confused by what you were talking about. Yeah, I'm on Florastor, which is it's like, the one you're supposed to take while you're on antibiotics, because probiotics won't help until you're done with the course, apparently.
Okay, this makes sense to me. Tracks.
So I'm taking this stuff, and they're not going in my ass very easy. I've been having to use some.
Sure.
I'm using dish soap.
Machine oil. Okay.
Yeah, slip them up there. Come on, that's stupid. Don't be stupid.
Hey.
Speaking of which, that's interesting you mentioned machine oil. We don't usually do this, but we do have an advertiser today. And Ian doesn't know about this. I did a bit before, a couple episodes back, where I said the show was sponsored by VPN VIP, which was the first VPN designed specifically for VIP or viewing illegal pornography. That was a joke.
That was a joke, though. Yeah, that was a joke.
Yeah, that was definitely a joke. That's not a real company, and they didn't sponsor us, and we wouldn't let them. But this is real. This is 100% real.
Oh, wow. Today
we are sponsored by the scene in The Transporter where Jason Statham puts on the bike cleats to fight the guys in the motor oil. That's
hey, getting endorsed by a timeless product like that, that's going to be huge for us. Just something.
What is he actually wearing in that scene? Is it? I always assumed it was just like the things.
I think he's fully nude, and then they are track cleats. The front half have spikes. Okay. Second back half.
I'm Googling Jason Statham nude, and I am learning a lot of stuff, but I'm not seeing any of this. Wait. I typed in Jason Statham. That's not going to really help me. I need Transporter. Frank Martin. Remember when he was in Collateral?
No. What are you talking about?
At the very beginning of Collateral, Vincent Collateral is like at the airport or the train station or something, and he passes Jason Statham, and they give each other a nod.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I've always felt 100% certain that is Frank Martin, the Transporter.
There's very little evidence to disprove this theory. So
yeah, exactly. It's like Michael Keaton in Jackie Brown and Out of Sight.
Yep.
It's 100% true.
It's like that theory about how Michael Keaton is in Jackie Brown. I'm pretty convinced that it's true.
It's a fan theory. Did you hear this thing about how the reason that we're back to the Flash talk? Flash is going to come up later in the show as well.
From our hearts. Okay.
No.
Don't know why. Oh wait, I do know why this time. Hell yeah, I know why.
You do. Yeah, you do.
Old friend of mine.
Talking about in the movie The Flash, famously Michael Keaton reprises his role as the Batman.
One of the only facts I know about this film.
But outside of the Batmobile, which lost a wheel recently, I heard, very sad. There is there's no real Burton-esque architecture or design elements at all in the film. And I read a theory recently that was compelling to me, that they were holding out hope and coming back and back to Christian Bale with so much money, certain that he at some point would agree to appear in the film, and he never did. And so at the last minute, they pivoted to Keaton, who they had already signed to do the Batgirl movie that they then shot into the sun.
A very sad, clarifying bit of information. So this is just role filling for the little winky audience part.
All the audiences for The Flash does have little winkies. That's right. I'm willing to jump on this grenade. Oh, hell, man! I'll jump on any grenade you got.
Yeah.
A dud, just on the off chance.
You're just jumping by like balls that are thrown to dogs near you, just in case. Yeah.
I recently heard on like TikTok or whatever, probably fake, that Richard Attenborough is the reason that tennis balls are fluorescent yellow.
Don't believe that.
He was like in charge of colorizing the BBC or something, and they were going to air Wimbledon, but it was hard to track the white tennis ball. And so he was like, make it fluorescent yellow.
You know what? Maybe I do believe it. That's a pretty boring story, so it's possible. Yeah. Doesn't seem.
The transporter oil fight scene. Now this has been uploaded by YouTube user Smoke the Pimp. I'm gonna skip ahead. When did he put the little stuff on his?
Oh.
Pretty good song. What is he putting on? I forgot how this movie is like. Just a lot of it's French.
Yeah.
All right, so there's oil on the ground. He's not nude. He's shirtless in slacks, which is somehow, to my mind, nakeder than nude. What's nuder than being nude? Ice cold. All right, this is up there, but yeah, it's like from they're specifically like bike pedals that he pulls off of a bicycle.
Okay, yeah,
he's in
great.
a bus debit, and he pulls them off. Anyway, so I'm doing fine.
Now, it's funny that you bring up Smoke the Pimp, because he's going to come up later on the show in a little bit here.
Hell fucking yeah, dude. That was so cool. I wish that Albert Popwell was in this film. I wish he just kept coming back.
God, yeah, that'd be good.
Would have been good. Anyway, we're talking about Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the Clint Eastwood film of 1997. Famous year. You and I were both born. It's a joke.
It's true.
No, we're cool. We're like old guys. We're falling apart.
Couple cool old guys.
I'm pretty sure that I can like feel myself taking longer to heal from things.
I also have felt this, but this could be the real frailty inside our minds.
Maybe, but I feel like I'm Hugh Jackman in the film Lorgan.
Yep.
And it's just not. It's taking longer.
I hope they got the podcasty bingo cards, because we're whipping through them today.
Do I say Lorgan every time?
No, that was a nice change.
Trying to figure out a way to say that it was like that movie where Hugh Jackman plays Kenneth Lonergan. I don't know. That's for nobody. That's not true. It's for Forrest. That's for our friend Forrest.
Welcome to the show, Forrest Tiffany.
Welcome to the show.
At home. What if he got a little bit nervous? Like he thought he was on the pod for a second?
I just texted him about this. He didn't think it was that good. I wanted to run it by you.
Okay.
So what if Godzilla was like wearing an epilepsy helmet and telling you to listen to a song that would change your life? Shin's Godzilla. What about that? Is that anything?
That's definitely something.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're talking about Manic Pixie Dream Girls maybe in a few weeks. I forget which episode that was on. It's going to come up.
Eastwood's Elizabethtown.
Yeah. Oh, no, wait. It was last week. It was Bridges. It already happened. The audience knows about this.
Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Directed by Clint Eastwood. Released November the 21st, 1997. But first, our signature segment, the two questions. Now, Ian, I don't know who went first last time. It was, I think it was you.
It's been a while.
I don't know. I think it was you. I'd like to go first. Now, as we record this, we're just a few weeks out from the release of Blowback Season 4. Brendan and Noah, please answer your email.
Trick. You're doing a little trick on the people, huh?
We'd love to have you on the show. Call us toll free. 1-800-podcasty for me. Goes right to Ian's phone.
19 numbers long.
Don't call that number. Don't know what that is. So my question for you is, when you're reading a book or you're listening to Blowback, when you're studying the history of imperialism, do you ever like kind of get confused and in your head start sort of rooting for also repressive groups that are opposed to the U.S. or British or whatever imperialist machine? Like, do you ever think for a second, like, okay, good, the Taliban's winning, and then you're like, wait a second.
I think this is a history class classic, because I think we're so media trained, to believe that somebody has to be the good guy and somebody has to be the bad guy. So even if you're Howard Zinn pilled enough to know that the US is probably the bad guy, you start rooting for like religious fundamentalists in Waco, Texas or something, where, I don't know, it seems like everybody was just making a lot of mistakes, doing bad stuff. And I think probably easier and more important to criticize the gigantic imperial nation that continues to lead the way on these things. But some of these other guys are pretty bad as well.
Howard Zinn.
Mm-hmm.
Howard Zinn, DC. That's where that is.
That's true.
University.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad to hear that I'm not the first guy to have this problem. I mean, famously, I've told my Saddam Hussein story on here, probably.
I don't know if you have.
So it's me, Saddam,
Meg Ryan,
and Maddie Albright,
mm-hmm.
and we are at the XFL game. No, I think I told this that that weird thing that happens where someone becomes they're in the news so much, they're so familiar to you that you sort of forget what they're familiar to you for.
Yes,
by walking by a newspaper and for a split second thought, Saddam Hussein died. It's too bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of an honest moment for you.
Yeah. One of the first.
Maybe, I don't know, is that big brain or galaxy brain level humanism where you're just sad about just a guy who you've heard of being dead?
I mean, I'm not. It's probably not. I think I've been texting you about this. I've been feeling pretty. I've been waking up and choosing violence in the parlance of the young people. I've been thinking a lot about.
I believe you texted me, I'm eco-fash this morning or something along those lines, which I understand.
So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some days I just wake up and I think, like, fuck trying to non-violently make change. I'm going to exclusively think about making it. And this is not me, like, protecting myself from any incrimination. I'm saying specifically,
happens to be your approach.
I only ever think about stuff. Yeah, I don't actually do anything. But yeah, I'm just, shout out to, what's his name? Michael Guillotine. What's the name of that guy who invented it? The guillotine was invented by a guy named Guillotine. This is real.
Is that real?
Yeah. It was invented by Joseph Ignace Guillotine, French physician, who thought it was a less painful method of execution.
He thought this was a medicine, this stupid fucking French guy.
It is it's medicine for the dang society.
It's true. And basically, if you get one of those bad boys, you don't have to worry about any diseases ever again.
That little notch looks so comfortable for your neck. Wish I had one of those notches.
There's like a fairy light for you when you see something nearby.
Yeah, exactly. How you doing, man? What's your question, you fuck?
Hey, that's a cool way to set up somebody else's question. How you doing? What's your question? My question this week is something I believe I've asked you before, but I think it's good for us to discuss on pod. How do you feel about straight men using the word bitch? Especially, let me give at least one qualifier here.
Okay.
It's being targeted at somebody who is neither a femme presenting person who is maybe fulfilling the stereotypes of women as shrewish or shrill or something, nor is it being aimed at a man who's failing to uphold masculine archetypes.
You're talking about, for example, the classic Antonin Scalia retire bitch usage of the term.
Sure. Or just hypothetically, before you answer the question, and then maybe not hypothetically if you say it's okay, calling one of your cats whom you love a type of a bitch.
I think it's fine. Okay. I mean, I went until I was like 24 or something, basically never saying the word bitch. I was treating it like some of the most famous words in our language, who often get a little letter to themselves.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I don't really know what happened, but I just started thinking it was fun to call somebody a bitch.
Yeah, I'm going to let you off the hook a little bit. I believe we all sort of decided this. We're talking about like mid 2010s for some reason.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, I make sure not to use it for femme presenting people.
Mm-hmm.
I generally make sure not to punch down. I use it a lot toward the cat.
Yeah.
I'm careful about who I use it toward, and you know, it is hard to extricate it from its origin. One of the I think the least excusable context in which to use it now is to describe a dog in a breeding context. I mean, I think that's maybe the weirdest fucking thing you could do.
Just came across it. I was reading about livestock guardian dogs, important for my life and lifestyle.
Those are cool.
They're extremely cool. But somebody used it in describing just like which types of dogs they had, and it was shocking to me. I felt a little bit scandalized just sitting alone in my room.
What would you think about calling not boy and girl dog, but man and woman dog? What do you think about that?
What Adam and Eve dog? Yeah.
Yeah. AdamandEveDog.com, sponsor of the show. Is that anything?
I don't even know if that still exists.
When I was in college and listening to WTF pretty constantly, I decided to use the offer code to order some bulk condoms from AdamandEve.com.
You're buying them for somebody else or what?
I kind of thought it would be funny.
Okay.
And I got them, and they came in, as I recall, the kind of bag you get at a crab boil place, like a big, very thin plastic bag. Basically like a produce bag at a grocery store, but like twice the size.
Okay.
It wasn't full. It was like a lot of condoms.
Sealed?
No. Maybe it was like tied. I mean, I think they clearly look in the warehouse, like this went down the aisle or something. But there were also condoms. It was a whole range, you know, different materials, different shapes, different colors. Some of them, you know, there was like 2 flavored ones in there or whatever. There was like unlubricated ones for whatever those are for. There was all kinds. But then there were also like extra large and extra small ones, which like, I guess the idea is that no one is really going to buy this unless they are like an RA or like a health clinic or something.
Not aimed at a single human being.
They're not aimed at a single person. And of course there was no way. I mean, I think I'd still be going through them because you can only eat like 1 or 2 at a time. Filling.
Yeah.
That's my AdamandEve.com story. Also, they were supposed to send me a free porno and they never did. But, you know, I guess maybe they figured I would find out about how you can get free porno other ways.
Sure, they're trying to help you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. A little internet education.
Anyway.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clarifying.
Absolutely. And you think it's good to say in any context?
Now I don't have to answer because your dumbass already answered.
Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, November the 21st, 1997. This comes out the same day as Francis Ford Coppola's The Rainmaker, which is a John Grisham adaptation. We'll get into the Grisham of it all. I think that's part of the reason that this film gets made, although it's also an insane bestseller. And also in release at this time, much further down the box office list, are Eve's Bayou and The Devil's Advocate. So there's kind of the hanging kudzu, the southern gothic, the southern spooky mode is popular at this time. The Southern Lawyer is popular at this time. I mean, I think that's a lot of that is Grisham. John Grisham is the publishing powerhouse in the 90s. And he's from Memphis, so all of his books are set in Memphis and sometimes New Orleans, and the movies are all hits. And so the South and the law, they're going well together in the 1990s. But anyway, we'll get to that. If you want to watch this film, you go to all your usual places. It's streaming online. That's, of course, if you're in the United States. Now, Ian, if someone is down there in Oaxaca de Juarez or any other part of Mexico, and they're using Mexican Wi-Fi, mexicaninternet.com. Where are they going to find the film? Midnight
Down here in Mexico, they're going to find it on Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple TV as well.
Man, Savannah TV.
No, that's what they would call it down there. I didn't say that. Who do you think is this? Is this saying this?
Now, if I could...
Savannah TV. Man, Savannah TV.
Is this, and this is pretty rare to actually spot this in the wild, Is this the famous laughing skull that hits your computer if you get hacked? Speaking in his normal voice. Is that what this is?
Man Sapna TV.
I mean, basically, it is kind of probably what that skull would sound like, but it is not explicitly that skull.
Okay,
I'll give you a
all right.
hint. One of the reasons that I picked it is that it belongs to an early member of the Screen Actors Guild.
Is this
Man Sapna TV.
John Barrymore? Who is this?
No,
Man Sapna TV.
this is our good friend Boris Karloff.
Oh,
Man Sapna
Mr.
TV.
Spooky himself.
Mr. Spooky himself. I picked this. Of course, this is a spooky film, and also all our comrades out there on the picket lines in SAG-AFTRA and in the Writers Guild, and all the other labor actions going on here in the United States. We stand with our comrades, and we're looking forward to the Halloween season as well.
Yep.
So
I think that's great. It's incredibly brave, requires so much fortitude to stay on strike for more than 100 days.
insane.
And also, the studios are the biggest monster of them all.
That is so true. This Dr. Zaslav's monster.
Yeah.
Wonder what would happen if you were to take a live person and put them on the lightning table and put them up toward the sky during the lightning storm. Could be cool to find out.
Cool to find out.
Could be cool to find out.
Seems like a bunch of bored producers might want to get involved in something like that.
As we record this is our first record since the big CNBC story about the Iger and Bob Chapek rivalry came out. Did you see this?
I don't know about this.
I
I've
tweeted about
heard
this.
at least one thing about Bob Paycheck in the past, but it was about somebody's salary.
There was apparently part of the scuttlebutt is that when Iger selected Chapek as his successor, he didn't want to give up his office because it had a shower in it that had been installed by, I think, Michael Eisner. And Bob Iger just simply couldn't give up his midday showers.
Okay.
And so
this is the only shower he had ever seen. This is the type of rich person detachment that he has.
I guess it was because he was going to stay at Disney and be there so often. Because I'm thinking, well, if you're stepping down, just go to your fucking house.
Yeah.
You bitch.
A good example.
Thank you. But it also included the detail that in the bathroom, or maybe just the office, there was a poster of like all of the accomplishments, in scare quote, all of the acquisitions basically that Iger had overseen during his tenure. Iron Man shaking hands with Maz Kanata or whatever. I guess I didn't acquire Maz Kanata. Iron Man shaking hands with Ponda Baba, of course, the walrus face man from the Star Wars Cantina.
Great.
And then next to that, they also had a doctored poster for the Iger sanction. Bob Iger's face on Clint Eastwood's body.
Wow.
Yeah.
We were basically in the news.
You should read our Twitter account that I am posting from.
No, thank
Day in
you,
and
but I
day out.
appreciate it.
At my job.
Yeah.
Does this mean that all of our tweets are property of my employer?
I don't know. Do you work at like car manufacturer circa 1970 or something?
Well, no,
Who
I
are the
think
guys
it's
who really
still the
pioneered
case.
that? Oh, I think it is too.
No, I work at the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, so I tweeted about that because it's very funny. This is a movie I'd seen before and I enjoyed. And rewatching it, I enjoyed it a little bit less, I think, because part of the original enjoyment was like, wow, this is Clint Eastwood does this. But now I know Clint Eastwood does a lot of things. You'd watched this film before, I think, on my recommendation. Is that right?
Incorrect. Never seen this film before. I was very surprised. I made a mistake, something I try to avoid. I saw your original Letterboxd review in advance of watching this. And I thought, wow, can't believe how good this film was going to be. I was going in with pretty low expectations, and I liked it. I liked it a fair bit. I don't think it's in the super all-timers club, but it's pretty good.
Probably not.
And I
Unlike
think
Kevin Spacey, it's not in the 5-timers club.
That's unfortunately right. I think you may have downplayed, in case people don't remember whether they've seen or heard of this film before. The book, I think, has to be up there with the Bible among the books I've seen the most copies of in my life. Certainly top 10.
You said something to me that was so remarkable. It gave me a little tiny world shift. Like I'm seeing the universe 0.00001 degrees off from how I was before you sent this text message, in which you said, of the cover of this book, the famous cover of this book, is this the photograph of a statue that is in the most people's houses? Which is an incredible way to think about the film.
These are the kinds of big questions I'm asking in my free time. Yep.
Yeah. Ian has been seated motionless for 3 hours. He stands up to text this to me and then sits back down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the cover of the book and the beginning of the film are both, they use the very striking image of the statue.
Bird girl.
Now, this is one of those things. This is one of those statues that is, it's a bronze, and it is, there are copies of it or casts of it. There's more than one of these. You know what I mean? Okay. But there's like, there's 6 casts of the original clay sculpture. One of them is in lead and 5 of them are in bronze. Would love to get my mitts on that lead one, get a good taste. Between 1937 and 1940, the sculpture is by Sylvia Shaw Judson. And one of the casts was bought by a Savannah family. They named it Little Wendy, and they put it at the family's plot in the Bonaventure Cemetery, this is the cast that was photographed for the cover by Jack Lee, who's a photographer. And it was also used as the evocative opening of the film. Now, first of all, I think this is masterful. I think every adaptation of a book with a striking cover should recreate the cover of the... I genuinely believe this. This is what the book looks like. This book looks like a picture of a bird girl statue. I mean this.
I know you do. And I think that's beautiful.
Like if they ever make a Catcher in the Rye movie, you just better show me that fucking weird red carousel or whatever the goddamn thing is.
Yep.
They ever make a movie of the Bible, it better be leather bound with a cross on it. There better be an image of that. I don't know. They did.
That
John
big
Huston
T
did.
That's what we see everywhere.
I watched some of John Huston's The Bible in the beginning. Did I talk about this on the show?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I couldn't sleep, so I put this on. The beginning of it is...
Well, it's dark. It starts really dark at the beginning.
It does, actually. It genuinely does. You're stupid. I want to see if... I was thinking about this earlier. You know the water jet that they use to cut tile or whatever?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You think anybody's ever been executed with one of those?
No.
Maybe like in Saudi Arabia or something?
I don't believe so.
Speaking of Kevin Spacey. Anyway, that could be you. All I'm saying. But the Bible in the beginning opens with like a bunch of footage of Hawaiian eruption, like lava flowing into the ocean, with John Huston reading Genesis. It's cool as fuck.
Yeah. That sounds like, powerful, prehistoric.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, great.
It's really cool. And just like nature footage, but with John Huston saying like, in the beginning, there was darkness, and then there was light, or whatever the fuck happens in that book. I haven't read it. No one has. Yeah, this is it's a cool statue.
It's a cool statue. Yes, this is all to say, good statue.
Well, but it's also like, I mean, I think this whole movie is about truths, representations of truths. And so it is including, not only is our Southern cemeteries evocative and are they part of the plot, and is there a death in the book, but I think having an interpretive sculpture of a person open the book and open the film, I think is telling.
I think you're right. And, next week, we have said since the beginning of our podcast nearly.
Next week, we have said since the beginning of our podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
Tomorrow when the war began. Remember that?
I will remember that. It is a true crime podcast, kind of, because this is like a Tripoli fake story about
It's
a
like,
real thing that happened.
It's a creative nonfiction crime.
It's a crime against creative nonfiction.
What Ian was referring to is that the book is the film is an adaptation of the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, one of the biggest bestsellers of all time. 215 weeks on the bestseller list or something crazy like that.
Wow.
Eclipsing even Bridget's of Madison County. And that book by a guy named, there's so many fucking guys named John. How am I supposed to keep all the Johns? John Berendt. Book by John Berendt, who was like editor of New York Magazine.
Yeah, Esquire.
Editor of Esquire.
Yeah.
And of course, his analog in the movie is treated a lot more like a sort of lowly journalist,
would-be writer.
Yeah, or like making it work, but not certainly not the editor of Esquire magazine.
And I think John Berendt, he was like the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Lampoon, went right to New York magazines. It's
one of those guys.
Yep.
But it is the tale both of it's one of those famous hey, get a load of this weird town novels.
Yep.
It's sort of a nonfiction novel. And then the way the book presents it becomes a murder trial story, much like in the film. The way it actually worked is that Berendt first went to Savannah after the murder had taken place. He's coming to this after the fact. He's not like there when it happens. There are also characters in the book who have been dead since before he ever like went to Savannah.
There are also characters that he replaces with himself in the story, which I do think is deranged and actually less interesting. I think his argument for this was a coherent narrative with a kind of single outside person who's guiding us through this wacky town is going to be more accessible. Yeah. I think it's so much more appealing to me to imagine just vignettes of people who maybe aren't this New York guy having conversations.
We all know that I'm a big narcissist, but I think you are a subtler kind of narcissist as well.
That's true.
Which is fine. But my question to you is, how much of your life did you assume that you were going to become this kind of guy? This writer, this type of
that's totally a fair question.
Novel.
I think when you and I met, we were certainly both imagining we would be this type of person.
We were writing the book about the other guy, assuming he was going to die soon.
Yeah. For me, it was basically from about 16 when I had a really lovely English teacher who just said like, hey, pretty good essays probably. And in my memory, it was, trying to award me the Nobel Prize in literature, just like in advance of publishing anything.
Like in the Baby Bell Prize in literature. little wax
cheese
wrapped
ball.
Cheese.
Yeah. Until maybe 25, I guess. And I had seen and done enough things to realize maybe it would be nice to just support other people's stories and be a part of them and just know other people in the world.
It's time for me to stop considering The Lobster.
Yeah.
And start listening.
Basically, yes.
About me as well. Well, I would say mine was more from 16 to listener whenever you feel is appropriate to get over this. No, I probably was like 22 or 23 by the time I realized like I don't really have the attention span and I don't want to go talk to anybody anymore. Like when I was 16, it was okay for me to go talk to people because I didn't like realize how completely humiliating everything about me was. But
I also think that you do have to have an excessive ego and be very comfortable. I think in the film, it's interesting because the character's name is John Kelso on screen, right? The John Cusack character. He seems to accept that he is a somewhat self-centered person at the very least. And I don't know. I think even like your Proust's writers that I love, you just have to believe that your story and your opinions are among the most important or certainly worth trying to share with somebody else, a lot of other people. And then in some cases they are. I think Proust's ideas about things were interesting enough to share with other people. But to actually believe that, you have to be extremely arrogant from the jump, right?
This guy took 12 books to say, damn, that cookie smell good.
Yeah.
That's the guy you're talking about.
That's the guy I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. You have to be the kind of guy who's like, my observations are yours. I have the perspective that is neutral and normal. And even if it's self-effacing, even if it's supposedly fun thing I'll never do again, kind of like this little girl kicked my ass at chess and I stopped going to the game room on the cruise ship or whatever. That part he made up, I think. You're still saying like, I'm the anthropologist here.
Yeah, you're still deciding to say, I'm going to tell a story about me, this ridiculous loser, instead of a story just about the 12-year-old child, or instead of just looking at the child and saying, wow, that's it. That's the extent of your involvement.
We don't condone looking at children and saying wow on this show. I was thinking today about how fucked it is that, every reactionary accusation is a confession or whatever they say. But like the groomer panic, all of the far right bullshit about sexual deviancy of liberals has really ruined just like interpersonal kindness.
Sure. Yes.
Not that there aren't sex freaks out there. One of them stars in the film, but
don't know which one.
So, I've thought about like, if I find like a child who's been abandoned, the first thing I have to do is find an older woman to help me help the child in order to secure benefit of the doubt from like later. You know what I mean? Anyway, stray thought. I'm all over the place today.
No, it's okay. I think it's reasonable.
Thanks.
I do want to set a little challenge for us. Do you think we can do a 5-minute plot summary? 5 minutes or less?
Yeah, I think we can. I read some of this book very briefly before we start the plot summary. I want to give you a quick summary of the type of book that this is.
Yes.
This type of book is a bunch of like, hey, there's a guy over here, he's crazy. Hey, there's a guy over here, he's crazy. But they're all the kind of thing that is like, it seems impossible. Like, I think what's interesting to Clint about this is the way that an unusual collective comes together, like a community of strange people who allow each other space to be their strange selves, and they are able to live together because they kind of let each other be.
Yeah, leave room for each other, sure.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But the book is full of like the dog walker guy who in the book is walking Patrick. He worked as a clerk at the law office or whatever, and he walked the judge's dog for $15 a week. The judge dies. He keeps walking the dog. The dog dies. He goes to whoever was still paying him out of like the judge's will to say, well, I can't walk Patrick anymore. And the guy says, the executor or whatever says, why not? And he says, well, because he's dead. And the executor says, what do you mean? I see him right there. And the guy's like, me too. A lot of stuff that just like is these funny stories that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
When you think about them, but they're charming enough. And then Jim Williams comes into the picture and introduces this whole other question about what is and is not out in the open, and the ways that, I mean, it in many ways kind of relates to thematically, like expanding on some of the ideas from the Bridges of Madison County about small town repression, or the ways that you have to navigate who you actually are within the context of appearances and the social order in your small town.
And I think it's doubly perfect in its setting. One, because courtroom dramas traditionally have been exactly this, examining social mores versus actual legal statutes, and where the division is, and what people allow and what people decide is not okay, even if it is legally okay, and sort of this extreme sea of gray that exists in normal social operation.
The only place in actual society where someone does go on a monologue about their ideals.
Yes, exactly. And then there's a actual chorus of people who react to this based on their various experience.
I say, yeah.
And then also choosing Savannah, Georgia, because I do want to talk about that later. Savannah, What a place. What an unusual place.
What an unusual place.
Maybe aspired to have certain values and then so quickly turned out to be much more down the line, just reinforcing the same shitty things that every other place did. So I think it's perfect that we have this setup of people saying, yeah, there's these kooky characters you're talking about. And then there's this guy who's kook whose divergence from society is maybe not permissible, or is it? We don't know.
There's a very large subset of the courtroom drama that is the Southern courtroom drama, because the South obviously has been the site of a lot of deviation from what is actually on the law books. It is, the bastion of Confederate thinking in the literal small c sense as well as the large c sense, like states' rights kind of thing, and local jurisdiction. And then also obviously your ceiling fans and your women fainting in the gallery,
big hats, etc.
Big hats, all of this. I'm but a humble country lawyer. I recently watched The Client, which I recommend highly. This is another Grisham adaptation by Joel Schumacher. That was the debut of Brad Renfro as a young boy.
Oh, yeah.
Who is the titular client. And because he's a little boy who sees something he shouldn't and gets involved with the mob is looking for him, and the FBI wants him to testify and all this. But he is evidently, I think he must be from Tennessee, because he, unlike everyone else in the movie, Tommy Lee Jones, Susan Sarandon, and all the other people doing their silly accents, he's the only one who says liar, like JF, like Jesse Farrar from YKS. He says liar, which I think is the Tennessee pronunciation of lawyer.
Great.
They don't say that here. But yeah, let's do our 5-minute plot summary. It took us 20 minutes to talk about the 5-minute plot summary. All right.
Start the clock.
Okay, let's see if I can do it. You ready? Did you start it? Am I supposed to start it?
I'm starting it right now.
Okay. Should I? 1 minute. Should I go? Okay. So there's a guy named John Kelso who is a writer for Town and Country magazine. He goes to beautiful, historic Savannah, Georgia, to cover the famous Christmas party of local art collector, antiques dealer, gentleman Jim Williams, played by Kevin Spacey. He's barely there but a night when there is a murder of Williams's young handyman and lover, Billy Hansen, played by
Jude Law,
actor Jewish Law. And Kelso, Williams admits that he shot him, but he says it's in self-defense. So now there's going to be a murder trial. So Kelso's like, goody, I'm going to stay on. I'm going to write a book about this. I'm going to write the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Barrett. And so he's there for a while, and he meets all the colorful characters. There's, of course, Mandy, played by Allison Eastwood of Tightrope and very briefly Absolute Power fame.
Don't want to slow you down. Invented entirely for the film, or was she somewhat in the book? No,
can't wait to tell you about this.
Okay.
She's a love interest in the film. She's a sort of local torch singer. There's also the neighbor, basically the guy in the next house over, Joe Odom, who is
I like this guy.
A sort of disbarred attorney turned piano player and party thrower. There's all the fancy ladies of Savannah. There is a local spiritualist named Minerva, played by Irma P. Hall. We'll get into Hoodoo in a little bit. There is Jim Williams' lawyer, Sonny Seiler, played by Jack Thompson. And there is most notably Lady Chablis DeVoe, played by the Lady Chablis herself. A number of people from the actual story appears themselves in the film, leading to the sort of Herzogian ecstatic truth of the thing. And by the end of it, Jim Williams is forced to come out of the closet on the stand in order to clarify his relationship with Billy Hansen. And then he is eventually acquitted, but his dirty laundry has been aired. And he almost immediately dies of a heart attack. And Kelso is now together with Mandy, and they walk Ugga, the University of Georgia dog, with the Lady Chablis, who has prepared some chicken. The end.
3 minutes and 13 seconds. Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Thank you so much. You should see me make love. Just kidding.
Yeah. Only key piece I think I'd add before we start breaking it down. You referenced these questions of truth. I think maybe the emotional climax is around whether Jim Williams is telling the truth about his story. You said that initially he says self-defense, and then he changes the story privately with Kelso to explain why Billy does not have any gunpowder residue on his hand.
Yes.
And at that point, Kelso realizes that maybe little to none of this is true, or he has no idea what the real version is. And he sees Jim lie on the stand. And at that point, he sort of understands that this has been a self-serving exercise, not the sort of fight for justice or truth that he thought it might have been.
Exactly. And by the way, the nurse who bagged the hands herself, the nurse
Miss
who
Minneapolis.
Miss Minneapolis, she got herself murdered by Mr. Booth from In the Line of Fire, John Malkovich himself. Give me your hand. Give me your hand, you'll die. I'm doing the hand next to the microphone. I hope that picks up.
He's really doing the In the Line of Fire hand.
I watch that clip all the time. I posted that on our Twitter that you don't look at.
Sounds great.
Son off of bitch.
Giving it a mental fave.
Boing. All right, so a couple of things we want to get to. First of all, we have to talk about the Kevin Spacey of it all. Let's just get into Kevin Spacey of it all.
Yeah.
Actor Kevin Spacey. Now, I want to be very careful here. We were talking about this beforehand. Normally, we're kind of fast and loose with accusations, threats of violence, the kinds of things you're not really supposed to say on a microphone. I'm going to be careful here because it seems, from what I can tell, Kevin Spacey seems to have a strong, capable legal team. And again, there's no connection to this that I'm drawing conclusively.
Yeah.
Almost all of the many people who have come forward with allegations of abuse by Kevin Spacey have either recounted, dropped the case, or mysteriously died. So I am simply going to state only what has officially legally happened.
Great.
Kevin Spacey.
Hey, do you want to drop in the word recanted really fast?
Recanted. What did I say? Recounted?
Yep.
Sorry, thinking about the damn state of Florida.
Those Chads.
Brooks Brothers riot. What are you talking about? Ian's freaking closet?
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be nice to have like a bunch of loud shirts.
I'm wearing a Brooks Brothers at this very moment.
You are? What are you wearing?
A shirt, a classic shirt.
Oh, nice. Some shirting, some men's shirting.
Okay.
Did some men's shirting earlier.
So you're gonna lay some Spacey facts on us.
Antibiotics. So we can still say stuff that is like not disprovable. For example, Kevin Spacey sucks shit. He can't act. All his impressions are the easiest ones to do.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, there's a really great episode of the podcast The Ride, Second Gate, their Patreon tier. I don't want to take the food out of their children's mouths, so I'll just go over there. But I believe it turned out to be their first episode recorded in quarantine, which was very upsetting to relive. But it's them and Eva Anderson just going through the great Eva Anderson, just going through
wonderful podcast, guys.
Kevin Spacey ephemera and talking about how deeply strange the man is. Now, Kevin Spacey, he was like considered one of the great actors. I've never been convinced.
Okay, yeah, you're smart. You're smart and you've always been smart, but you're right. We have the usual suspects. I think we grew up in a time where this was like, just wow, this movie, what a turn, what a genius you have to be. Yep.
Yeah. Directed by Bryan Singer, who is apparently now living comfortably in Israel. Did you see that?
I did not.
L'chaim, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that. It's fine if I say that. So he's in The Usual Suspects, a stupid film that is proud of itself for being the screenwriter of the film and me not having the information that the screenwriter is making up as he goes along. Fuck you. Make a Tom Cruise movie later. He's also in Seven.
He is, yeah. It's supposed to be impossibly evil. And then he switches sides. You got like the Pay It Forward style.
What's in the fucking box?
Mm-hmm. That's from Pay It Forward.
K-Pax, of course. After his American Beauty Oscar win, he cashes it all in to star as Bobby Darin in a film that he wrote and directed himself, I think. About a man who was dead long before the age that Kevin Spacey is in the film.
But maybe never died and in fact became the spirit of one Kevin Spacey.
He's one of these guys like a Seth MacFarlane who thinks it's not enough to be a mogul, an actor, a rich guy. He also has to interpret the Great American Songbook. And I find this to be universally unappealing.
Yeah, I think it's hard enough when you're listening to Roy Orbison, and I think some of his songs are undeniable, but you're thinking, these guys definitely stole a huge amount of cultural heritage and used it to enrich themselves, and did it in kind of a corny, put on way. But
And they're also dressing up in a way that no one does anymore except to do this kind of music.
Yeah, but now you have this like third generation of guys still doing that. This is just like steampunk, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like steampunk. There's a very interesting, I mean, Savannah is, we'll get to Savannah, but like Savannah has a particular type of cultural appropriation going on because it's a very particular part of Georgia. We'll get there in a second. So Kevin Spacey sucks shit. He's a bad actor. He's annoying.
But hey, you know what? I think I would count this amongst his best roles, in part because I think he has to do very little acting here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. What Ian is referring to, of course, there were long rumors circulating about Kevin Spacey's was sprockets. First of all, Kevin Spacey's sexuality, and also rumors circulating that he was a sex pest. Again,
and also
rumors.
that everything he says and does is behind several layers of artifice that's attempting to be very charming, which is exactly the Jim Williams character.
He's also a close friend of the Clintons at this time.
Okay.
He and Chris Tucker and Bill Clinton and Jeff Epstein go to Africa to like promote AIDS awareness.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of pictures of like Chris Tucker and Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey and Jeffrey Epstein in like a school cafeteria in Africa. It's bizarre. In 2017, this is pretty soon after the Harvey Weinstein sexual abuse allegations, actor Anthony Rapp, who is primarily a Broadway performer, originated a role in Rent, the first Broadway production of Rent. He is currently on Star Trek Discovery. He came out with a story that Kevin Spacey made an unwanted sexual advance toward him in 1986 when Anthony Rapp was 14 and Kevin Spacey was 26. They were both appearing on Broadway, Rapp says, and he says that Spacey invited him to his house and drunkenly picked Rapp up and put him on a bed and tried to force himself on Rapp, who was able to extricate himself before anything worse happened. Apparently, he met with a lawyer at the time. He had discussed the incident in an interview with The Advocate in 2001, but they redacted Spacey's name to avoid
legal fallout,
repercussions. And then subsequent to the Harvey Weinstein Me Too sort of sea change, Rapp decided to come forward. Apparently, he first talked with Lupita Nyong'o about it.
Wow.
And she encouraged him to come forward. Shout out Lupita, come on the show.
Yeah.
But Spacey does a very bizarre thing. This is October 29th, 2017. Pretty spooky time. And what a spooky statement. This is he posts like an image of a, I don't know, Google Doc. It's text that he posts as an image on Twitter. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago. But if I did behave then, as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I am sorry for the feelings he describes, having carried with him all these years. This story has encouraged me to address other things about my life. I know that there are stories out there about me and that some have been fueled by the fact that I have been so protective of my privacy. As those closest to me know, in my life I have had relationships with both men and women. I have loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man. I want to deal with this honestly and openly, and that starts with examining my own behavior. Kevin Spacey. So he
has impressively done a reverse Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. He has said, what if this case is actually about my sexuality? And now that this is okay to be gay, it's quite brave for me to say, I'm choosing to be an open gay man. And
he tries
forget about the beginning of this paragraph.
Yeah, he tries to make a bigger headline to drown out the first headline.
Yeah.
Obviously gets a lot of criticism for this because it's disgusting to do and sociopathic in my opinion. and also perpetuates pretty nasty stereotypes about gay men being sexual predators toward younger people, which are luckily, of course, behind us now, not a part of the culture at all.
Right.
So he says this, it's fucked. After this, there's what you might call like a deluge of accusations by other people. He is fired from his role on the show House of Cards, where he plays Foghorn Leghorn. He is... No, he's just doing the same accent as this, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's not a good actor. I can't stress this enough. He's a poor actor.
It's true.
So he's let go from that. Apparently the House of Cards, like production company, set up a anonymous tip line about Kevin Spacey.
Whoa. Okay.
There was such a culture of fear allegedly on the set. So a bunch more people come forward, including a massage therapist in Los Angeles who dies at the age of 62 before they can go to trial. Right on the cusp there of normal age to die. Anyway, so it takes until almost like exactly 5 years. Spacey is in a New York courtroom, says that the allegations are not true. He couldn't have taken rap into his bedroom because he was living in a studio apartment at the time.
It's always amazing how memories like that come back. How one moment you can say you can't remember something, and then later you can be sure that you didn't do it. That's always
he dabbed his eyes as he described being pressured into making a statement saying he didn't remember anything happening with rap, but would be sorry, quote, if it was somehow true. His managers said, quote, it was the best way to contain a crisis that was going to get worse and to avoid being accused of victim shaming. Now, he said, quote, I regret my entire statement. This is from NPR that I'm reading. He says his father was a white supremacist and a neo-Nazi that made him hide his sexuality. Yada, yada, yada. And then his lawyer, Jennifer Keller, says after the trial, when Spacey is acquitted, she says, quote, she says that Rap became jealous that Spacey became a megastar while Rap had, quote, smaller roles in small shows. He's in the original cast of Rent. And then she says, quote, so here we are today, and Mr. Rap is getting more attention from this trial than he has in his entire acting life.
In case you're unfamiliar with classic sexual assault rhetoric, this is right out of the playbook, and such a horrific lie to put forward that people are benefiting from claims of sexual abuse.
And Spacey says, I've learned a lesson, which is never apologize for something you didn't do. This is the end of the article from the NPR, which I find to be a type of, I would call, subtle activist journalism that I wholly support. It says, he also cried as he said he regretted revealing publicly that he was gay the same day Rap's accusation surfaced because some interpreted his announcement as an effort to change the subject or deflect from Rap's revelations. Spacey had testified that he spoke at the trial about deeply personal matters, telling the jury his father was a white supremacist and neo-Nazi who berated him as gay because he liked the theater. Spacey also gave courtroom spectators a brief taste of his acting chops when he briefly imitated his Broadway co-star at the time, Jack Lemmon. He had testified earlier that his ability at impressions aided him in his acting career.
What a fucking tasteless weirdo.
Unrelated to this, not talking about Kevin Spacey, what if it was possible for someone to do an impression of an innocent man? Anyway.
A poor one at that.
Back to talking about Kevin Spacey. So it's impossible not to see the connection here.
Yeah.
Spacey, so Barrett famously went to see the film and was totally baffled by what Kevin Spacey was doing in terms of the accent. Because his accent, he basically does the same cadence every time. And every sentence he says is sort of like this. Well, you have to understand about here in Savannah, we do special type of talking. Like it's that every single sentence
in the carriage house.
Yeah, it's very irritating. But Barron's like, what the fuck is he doing? He told me he listened to the tapes of Barrett that I have.
Tapes of 4 trials, something, right?
And it seems like he determined that Spacey must have only listened to tapes from the 3rd trial, during which Jim Williams was on a lot of Valium to calm his nerves. There was a state record 4 trials for this murder. He was eventually acquitted, obviously. By the way, the names, as you mentioned, the names of a lot of people are changed in the book. The real person was named
Hansford.
Danny Hansford, and they changed it to Billy Hansen.
Yes.
Sort of a Jackie Jomp situation.
Unfortunately, Jude Law kind of doing a Jackie Chan level acting performance.
Yeah,
here.
this is early Jewish Law. This is like same year as Gattaca.
But this is like what, when is Talented Mr. Ripley? Is that 99?
99. That's a 99.
I think he's wonderful in that movie.
Yeah.
It may be also because it's a little bit closer to his world, and this is too far.
I like him sort of in the later part of the movie where he moves to Rome. He looks a little different.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Guy who's confused. So that's the Kevin Spacey of it all. It's hard not to see the parallels. Waiting on Jim Williams-esque natural death. But anyway.
TK, as they say in the
TK.
publishing business.
Just a rundown of some of the people in the film. Jack Thompson as Sonny Seiler. He's a highly accomplished Australian actor. He is in Wake in Fright.
Incredible film. If you haven't seen that, you gotta watch it.
Good. Sonny Seiler himself.
Yeah, this is confusing in the old credit roll.
He sells seashells by the seashore, first of all, but he plays the judge.
He does.
I kind of did that in like a Obama accent. Sonny Seiler himself plays the judge. Is it racist to do an Obama? He does. No one talks like that. He's making that voice up.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I think it's okay. If it's the specificity spectrum, right? If you're within a certain degree of correctness, I think it's not racist.
I'm not. We've also got the Lady Chablis, who we'll get to in a minute. We've got Emma Kelly, the woman of 1,000 songs, who plays the piano in
6,000 songs.
Excuse me,
right?
the woman of 6,000 songs,
and
as herself.
This is the type of story you're saying that is maybe too much color, too much heightening in John Barrett's book. But I gotta say, you and I have seen pianist and film composer John Bryan play live, and it does seem like your brain can be just messed up in an advantageous way where you might just know 6,000 songs.
Yeah. It's called freaking mental brain. Look it up. We've also got Geza von Habsburg as himself.
Yeah, real on-screen Habsburg. Real on-screen Habsburg.
We've got a Habsburg, and not just
playing
Paul
himself.
Rubens, rest in power.
No.
With the withered arm.
The 30 Rock Habsburg, yeah.
Yeah. No, Geza von Habsburg, of course, was literally the fucking son of Archduke Joseph Francis of Austria.
Yep.
He was a great-great-great-grandson of Emperor Leopold II, the Holy Roman Emperor. He is the kind of, so he was on the staff of Christie's, and then he was the chairman of like Switzerland's Christie's office.
Yeah, I gotta say to these guys, you move farther away from the rich people.
He's a Fabergé expert.
I believe he is the Fabergé expert.
I'll give him this. He just he's not bothering any poor people by being a Fabergé expert. He's completely out of our hair.
That's true, but the amount of money that he's receiving for this role is too much.
He did what is called a morganatic marriage.
Pardon?
Sometimes called a left-handed marriage.
Okay.
Which is where you have to give up some of your inherited rank or privilege to marry someone outside of your social class.
Whoa.
He married a woman named Monica Decker. Yeah, and they had a child named Franz Ferdinand von Habsburg.
I just, have you ever seen the film, speaking of Ripley, The American Friend? You know this film?
Yes. Yeah.
Bruno Ganz, exactly. He plays a framer. I don't know what the official job is called. A guy who frames paintings. I think that's as close as you can get to rich people stuff if you are a former Habsburg. Have like a little shop in East Germany or whatever it is.
Little shop of framing. No, I after that film immediately looked up like how long does it take to become a framer? Because framing is so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, it seems like it's a good return on investment if you become a framer.
Mm-hmm. Who else we got?
Well, notably, we got the Lady Chablis, who is
she fucking rules. If you're gonna watch this movie, just watch for Lady Chablis.
She runs away with the movie.
She runs away so much where I have to turn it into a little bit of criticism because there's like maybe 10 minutes where we're totally in the Chablis-verse, and then we come back to Jim Williams, and I did have a little bit of whiplash and just saying, oh yeah, this is the main movie. There is unfortunately a main movie here. Speaking
of Hollywood pests, people with very dangerous vibes, and that is legally non-actionable to say. There's a story about the making of the film Booksmart, in which Carrie Fisher's daughter, Billie Lourd,
Yep.
had like one scene and was killing it so much that they like wrote a bunch more scenes for her. And so the movie seems to just sort of like all of a sudden have an extra co-lead after a while, which is fine because she's doing so great. She's the best part of that movie.
She is. Yep.
And I think Clint is to be forgiven. First of all, in 1997, The Lady Chablis is it's one of those situations where I want to be careful to honor somebody's gender presentation and identity, but also acknowledge that they were living under different circumstances than we are currently. And it seems like this person might have used a different term.
Particularly, I think, in the history of the evolution of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yes.
There's some things that are now considered gauche or offensive that were at a different point kind of revolutionary or brave.
There's a quotation that I found in doing my research that I think is very good. Let me find it here.
Is it 2 tears in a bucket?
Motherfuck it. No, that actually is. I'm just going to go with that one. That one rules. Okay. 2 tears in a bucket, motherfucker. That is her catchphrase. She apparently like ad-libbed basically her entire performance.
Yeah.
It's
and
terrific.
She's such a performer. I want to make this clear. I'm not saying this is some kind of weird what do they fucking call that? When you try to make yourself look virtue signaling, some kind of weird virtue signaling. She's a performer, a professional
virtue
performer.
Signaling by pretending you don't know the phrase virtue signaling.
Yeah, she's a professional who is so clearly a professional because she's insanely funny. She has an incredible amount of both romantic and non-romantic chemistry with John Cusack. So she is from Florida and gets her start as a performer at a gay bar in Tallahassee and is just like really fucking good at this performing. And obviously we are not the first people to say this. Gender is a performance. Obviously people who are forced by social mores to hide themselves or perform different versions of themselves tend to get good at performance. Yep. They've developed these skills from a young age.
So under the name Brenda Dale Knox, she wins a bunch of titles in drag pageantry like Miss Dixieland 1976, Miss Gay World 1978, the Grand Empress of Savannah 1977, Miss Sweetheart International 1989, Empress of Atlanta 1996, Miss Cosmo USA 1997, Miss Garden City 1997, Miss Atlanta Universe, very funny, 1998, Miss Georgia National, Miss Southern States USA. She is a champion. She performs at Club One from its opening night in 1988 and is a regular there until her death in August 2016. During the events of this book, I believe she's working at, or in this film, she's working at the Friends Lounge, which is a cabaret bar in Savannah. So she is a drag performer, like professionally. She refers to herself in this interview with David DeAlba from his website that is very old. So I don't know when it's from, but it's an old website. She refers to herself as a female impersonator, but by all accounts, she lives her entire life as the Lady Chablis. Like this is how she gets ready to go out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I read some more recent descriptions of her career that did describe her as a transgender person. Now, I don't know if that's how she considered herself.
This is, and in like all of her obituaries, she is an obituary in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. All these papers refer to her as a transgender star. John Berendt did like a special sort of transmedia version of the book that's like an app where if you're walking around Savannah, you can like, hit the boop boop button and it shows you what part of the book this is or whatever.
His book changed Savannah, basically. We don't have to get to that yet.
They call it the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for real. And when the book came out, people would ask each other, wait, am I in it? Same with the screenplay. In the sort of iPad version of the book, her lines that are not in the movie, her sort of quotations from the book are read by Laverne Cox to give you a sense of she's now regarded as a trans icon.
Yes.
She was tributed on a recent season of RuPaul's Drag Race after she died. So she is in this sort of both zone, which in my research is a way that a lot of trans people before there was a friendly enough space in American society to call yourself a trans person. Drag performance was a way for you to be yourself and also make money. And so this is not an uncommon thing. I think when she's on the stand and Sunny Seiler asks her basically to like explain who she is or what kind of person she is, she gives, I think, maybe like the best definition of transgenderism that I've heard in a movie, where she says, yes, I have a man's toolbox. Everything else about me is 100% lady.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah,
Yep.
look, if you're looking at the shit that dangles off of me,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That it fits in this category. Other than that, I'm a lady.
Yeah.
I do like a lot how, so Clint seems to love her by all accounts. She says in this article, he gave me the nickname, the One Take Wonder. How lucky was I to work with the butchest man in Hollywood history, my being gay, and have him just adore the doll. It was like he was an uncle with clout. She says, I was paid to use my own clothes, hair, and makeup. Sorry, but nobody can dress the doll but the doll. I designed and did all the beadwork on the ball dress. Clint let me ad-lib the entire movie. There was also a repeated story that she had been put up in the Holiday Inn. Let me find the quotation because it's good. During filming, they put me up at the Holiday Inn. So I told Clint, y'all forgot, I am the doll. I do not stay at the Holiday Inn. There was not enough room here for my luggage. And Clint apologized. He said, I can't believe they did that to you, doll. He was so wonderful.
I believe this.
Well,
not
the
only
movie
because it's a great
fucking
story.
loves her. The movie can't.
The movie loves her. It's not, the joke is her ability to engage with other people's discomfort or enjoyment of the fact that John Kelso is much more comfortable with her than maybe a lot of the people she's surrounded with. It's, I'm going to say 99% of the time, at least,
figures out what's going on. It starts dead naming her and like panicking around her.
With some exceptions. And I think the judge stuff also, there's maybe a bit of a joke just about how crazy this is. But I think in general, it's done with total respect. The jokes are her flamboyancy, her performance, her ability to mock other people.
She's an extremely distinctive person. No one in the world is like this. And the movie is interested in how much this individual is charismatic and funny. And also like a plot complication because she refuses to do what the polite thing to do is.
Yeah, that seems slightly tacked on for me, but I don't care because I think even as an emotional figure or a thematic figure, she is somebody who has actually opted to tell her truth. Not to say that people in the closet are
her tea.
Her tea, exactly. Not brave or something. There's people who have to handle these situations in different ways. I think we understand. But she, compared to the person she calls Miss Jim Williams in a different wonderful line. Yeah. I don't even know that bitch, she says. She's just like totally accepted that other people will not make that space for her that we were talking about before. And she just doesn't care. So I think that just makes her a great art figure, right? She's just sort of forcing people to reveal themselves all the time.
Exactly. She's I think in a way that I can imagine appealing very strongly to a libertarian type. She doesn't give a shit what she is expected to do. I mean, what is more libertarian than telling the federal government you can't say whether I'm a man or a woman? Like,
yeah, it's
ultimately defining your own identity in this way is a very libertarian thing to do in a sort of a on paper sense.
And she takes on other institutions like this, I don't know, like young black aristocracy or would-be black aristocracy or something.
Aristocracy?
Uh-huh. You've been in aristocracy?
You've been in Mexico for a long time. Yeah, aristocracy. That's what everybody says.
No, I don't think that's true. I think
like that movie, The Aristocats. Yeah, she's at this black cotillion, which is very explicitly like one of the people there says that they're like catching up to the white cotillion. I mean, it's a model of assimilation and
respectability politics.
Politics. So she's resisting this. And then even further, I want to talk just briefly about the Minerva character, who is what you call a root doctor. Yep. She's a practitioner of Hoodoo. Hoodoo is distinct from voodoo. One of my most annoying, actually guy characteristics is that I have long known and been a stickler for the difference between Hoodoo and voodoo.
All right, lay it on us.
Well, so they're both what you would call a syncretic spiritual practice, which is where
they're putting pieces together.
yes. So they both come from, they are a direct result of the transatlantic slave trade, people being enslaved and kidnapped from Africa and brought to the United States, where spiritual traditions from their homes in Africa or the homes of their ancestors, if they're born in the United States, are combined with the Christianity of the enslavers, with in some cases Islam that had already made its way into parts of Africa, and also with indigenous plant medicine. Voodoo is like a pretty strictly a much more organized spiritual system. It has much clearer like rules and figures, and it is more like a church. Hoodoo, to my understanding, is much more ad hoc.
Okay, like a curanderia or something that
yes.
a little bit everybody's style is how you do it.
Yes. I believe that voodoo also comes through Haiti first.
Okay.
And hoodoo does not. Hoodoo practitioners, sometimes called root doctors, sometimes called rooters, I think, or just doctors. These are people who work magic in order to do both good and evil, as the title suggests. The title refers to the period from 11:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. when you can do magic.
11:30 p.m. to 12:30 p.m., right?
That's what I meant, yeah. The magic doesn't go on because it's ready. It goes on because it's 11:30. Where from 11:30 to midnight, you do good. From 12 to 12:30, you do evil. There is a very strong connection between these practices and resistance to slavery. I'm mad at the libs for taking the word resistance and making it sound like a bunch of like
hashtagging
vote blue no matter who bullshit. Yeah. Yep. Donating money to a former cop who just says he's not gonna like put gay people in a big hole.
Yes.
This is literal resistance. I'm talking like armed resistance, for example.
Yeah.
And a lot of the leaders, for example, the leader of the first slave uprising in the United States in like 1712 in New York was a guy named Peter the Doctor. Pretty clear name.
Okay.
Who was the leader of what is sometimes called an invisible church, which is where enslaved Africans would go either to a church that was ostensibly a Christian church or to go meet in the woods or some other hiding place to practice their cultural traditions away from the prying eyes of white overlords. And he put together a slave uprising in which he took cemetery dirt, which contains sort of the power of the ancestors, and made it into a kind of paste that everyone put on their skin to protect them using the strength of their ancestors, which I think it's fair to say is cool as fuck.
Yep. That's hard as hell.
Yeah. And so here, Minerva's role is primarily working in the graveyard. Her relationship to Jim Williams seems, I mean, it's like his sort of, he's appropriating it. He seems not to believe it entirely or allows that it might work or something. He's like, it seems very mercenary, his use of.
Yeah, this is not unlike lots of Southern, I want to say indulgence, but I don't mean to say that it's not a good thing in and of itself, of fantasy, of this sort of like gothic supernatural. It seems to, first of all, often come out of the slave or former slave population, be adopted by white people in kind of household context or something.
Right.
But like you're saying, only be permitted or engaged in up to a point that serves them or is of interest to them, which again, I don't mean to say is like always done on a personal level. I don't think that every person who was doing these things was making a mercenary choice like this, but I think as a society, they kind of made a mercenary choice about how much of this we're going to get on board with.
Well, there's the like a classic distinction between Northern racism and Southern racism. Northern racism is making all the black people live in a different part of town, so you don't see them. And Southern racism is the black people can live among the white people all they want as long as they remember their place. Like it's there's a closer contact and a social intermingling within a very specific context.
Yeah, I think this is very much, I've have such limited experience in the South. I don't know how much insight you have. Virginia is kind of its own special place, but even driving through, I will say that I was pleasantly surprised how much racial integration there is, or at least like how much visible participation of people of color, both Black and Indigenous and all sorts of people there is. But at the same time, it's still the kind of the place you hear about.
Well, I lived in Northern Virginia, which is very
Mhm.
distinct from Southern Virginia for a number of reasons. The proximity of DC, obviously.
And would you characterize yourself as a rich man?
No. And
Okay.
I believe now latitudinally live south of Richmond.
Oh, okay.
So you can fuck right off with that.
All right. You're safe.
Also, by the way, try that in a small town. Jason Aldean, Felix Biederman recently called the only man ever to be 4'18". Incredible. Owen, one of the all timers. He's from Macon, Georgia, which is like a relatively large town in Georgia, not far from Savannah. Anyway, Virginia, in my experience, it's very integrated in all kinds of ways. But by the time I was there, I was there in like the 2000s, and this was also a time where 50 Cent was king. And so Blackness was, I mean, it's long been coolness for teenagers, but
yes,
there didn't even seem to be like the let's adopt this but leave the Black kids out of it. I mean, it was a very integrated social situation there that I appreciated. But also one of the types of sort of Northern chauvinism that I think, I mean, I've been guilty of, but certainly like I think our parents probably are, is forgetting that like a lot of people can't fucking leave the South. They're born there. So they're making the best of it. And also there's the argument that if you're a left-leaning person who lives in Mobile, maybe you should stay instead of trying to get a marketing degree and move to Williamsburg.
Absolutely. I mean, not only because one, you can potentially do more good, but also because, lots of great organizers talk about being able to participate more in your own community because you have the bona fides like built in, basically. I think you're right.
And then also one of the bullshit, he's doing Karate Kid fly catching with his hand.
Yeah, okay. I was.
One of the bullshit, perhaps astroturfed arguments against something like Stop Cop City, which is, as we record this, the indictment for people protesting Cop City in Atlanta for like pressing RICO charges on people.
Yes, seeking incredibly punitive charges.
But you see people saying these are, outside agitators. These are people from Madison, Wisconsin or whatever coming in here to raise a ruckus about something that no one locally cares about. Not that we need to indulge those people or give them an inch, but if you are a born and raised Atlantan with good politics, I think it would be more helpful in making positive change in Atlanta if you stick around,
Yep. It's pretty powerful to move even a fairly right-wing community like an inch to the left instead of, like you're saying, just moving to a place where you're already squarely in the middle of the Overton window and you just have to do nothing.
But Savannah itself is a sort of a special place. Obviously, as you mentioned, this book really changes the fuck out of Savannah. Many Savannans are in the book. They shot they shot the party scenes in Mercer House. Jim Williams's house, and this was with the permission of his sister, who would allow the filming of the party scenes there, not the shooting scenes. Those were filmed on a soundstage, which seems perfectly fine to me in terms of respecting the dead. But she was worried about the priceless artifacts and art objects throughout the house in the presence of, those dirty extras. So to safeguard them, they just filled the party with basically the people who would have actually been at the party because she allowed that they would respect the fancy shit. So all of Savannah is like in this movie.
Yeah, I read extremely apocryphally that Clint Eastwood maybe hand wrote those invitations to the people who had been to the Christmas parties before. unlikely, but
Goofy.
fun to think about. What you're referencing is the extremely explicit upper crust, this aristocracy, if you will, that exists in Savannah. And I think it's really interesting given that the founding of Savannah, I don't know how familiar you are with this, by James Edward
Savannah.
Oglethorpe.
Oh, no,
Oglethorpe.
I'm not.
Oldest European settlement in Georgia, founded in 1733, charter from George II, hence the name. There's basically two narratives about this dude. All right. One, maybe being put forward by the James Edward Oglethorpe estate, or people who just like to wear rose-colored glasses, or maybe just optimists. The other, maybe more realistic, a little bit pessimistic. I want to address both of them very quickly. So on the one hand, you have this dude. He arrives here. He is pretty objectively a pioneer in city planning. He focuses on maximizing public space and basically builds out the city as a series of cells, as a series of like subdivided microcosms, which we see in the movie, representing the fact that you have these central park squares.
Yeah, these
and
squares
then you have like you have like a single street of commercial buildings, and then I think 4 city blocks of residential buildings that surround that. So it means basically you're never more than about 2 blocks from a park, 2 blocks walking to commercial, stores, whatever. Sounds great.
Nice.
Oh yeah, wonderful. He also supposedly in the original charter set it up as an anti-aristocratic, anti-slavery settlement. Specifically because he had already witnessed what happened in the Carolinas, where you almost immediately have an aristocracy of this type, huge landowners, plantations.
Like that.
Okay,
well, nuts. Sorry,
okay.
keep going. But
all right, he makes specific allowances for a Jewish community that I think starts really, really early on. Sounds wonderful, right? He's talking about the wealth gap 300 years ago. What's not to love? Maybe what's not to love is that the anti-slavery thing was potentially motivated by the fact that he did not want I'm just going to quote here, Negro influence on the white community that he was establishing.
Yeah.
And he said that just by having those people around, basically you're degrading culture. It's losing
sort of
a
like
little
a
bit. Lincolnian
position, didn't he? It wasn't Lincoln sort of like, we should free the slaves and then send them all back to Africa kind of a guy?
Yeah, like a Monrovia or whatever. And the land acquisition thing, which I think seems genuine.
Now. Remember that?
No, what is
Daniel
that?
Day-Lewis Lincoln. Now, he says when he's being...
I don't recall. He's mad at Mary Todd or something.
No, he's mad at all the guys. He's mad at like fucking Salmon P.
Sumner?
Chase.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I was saying this land acquisition thing, limiting people, I think, to 500 acres, which, when you're colonizing a whole country is pretty small. Lasted about 15 years, not a huge amount of time, because a bunch of those same people arrived from the Carolinas and said, you know what? This is actually preventing us from becoming fabulously wealthy. And you can't have paths to wealth without slavery and without land accumulation. So you need to do away with this. Yeah,
still true to this day.
Exactly right. No, it's a very clear-eyed view of capitalism. I think these people understood exactly what they were being limited from achieving. And that basically means that soon after its founding, it relapses or lapses or whatever into the exact type of community, city planning aside, that it was trying to avoid being. And I do think this has bearing on the film because you have these people who believe it is a unique place, and it kind of is. And then maybe at the end of the day, it's not that unique in terms of its social mores and in terms of how much it doesn't want people to be, like you're saying, deviant in any way.
Right. And really what the court case lays low is exactly how much deviance is allowed, what kind lays bare, I should say. Is how much deviance is allowed, what kind, and who gets to be deviant in, like, you can sort of trade this much deviance for maybe you can be in this social circle, but not this one. You can't come to the party, whatever.
Right.
Savannah, yeah, it's an interesting, and now it's got the art school.
Yeah, it does.
So it is sort of referred to, even by us Norn boys, as like sort of an Austin style oasis in the.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of it's right on the coast. It's got a river. Yeah. It's a little like you're saying, just kooky architecturally. Has a lot of these old buildings. I get its appeal. I understand why John Barrett wanted to stay there. Probably also easy to stay there as a white man who can pat himself on the back for hanging around with some black people, and maybe just an objectively good way. But you kind of have a little layer for frosting.
Yeah, Miss Jim Williams also, as is shown in the film, he is a collector of all manner of things: Fabergé eggs, American artwork, and Nazi memorabilia, which is interesting.
Yep.
In the film, the shooting in question involved two men each with a Luger. And he's a big part of the Savannah historical restoration community, and so objected to the filming of The Ordeal of Dr. Mudd in 1979. This is a film about the guy who was imprisoned for conspiring with John Wilkes Booth to kill Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
They were filming it on Monterey Square, and to disrupt the filming, he hung a Nazi flag outside of a window at Mercer House.
Not great to have one of those at hand.
Because he
traditionally
wanted them to make a donation to the local Humane Society.
Okay.
In order to kind of purchase goodwill to film there.
You know who else loved animals?
The Congregation Mikveh Israel happened to be across the square from Mercer House. I would say, just thinking about it, you could hang a pair of pants out the window. You could hang a garbage bag. You could interrupt filming by hanging all sorts of stuff. You could hang a television because they wouldn't have had those.
Yes.
You could hang a sign that said the movie.
Yep.
But so he had a bunch of this stuff. Now, I think, there is a kind of wealth madness. There are a number of kinds of them, I guess. There's the kind shared by, for example, Kevin Spacey's good friends, Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton, who have so much power that basically the only thing that feels of any interest to you or feels dangerous or whatever is to violate social mores about who is appropriate to have sexual intercourse with. But then there are also guys, and obviously these are not mutually exclusive types of guys, but then you have like Harlan Crow type guys where, look, either you're a fascist or you just you bought every Magic the Gathering card and you're like, I guess I'm going to get Nazi stuff because it's hard to get. My question to you, there's like a sort of balance we need to strike, because obviously destroying, you forget history, do to repeat it, whatever. But at the same time, I don't think we should be like letting people have Nazi shit like in their house.
People talk about this as like a complex issue to resolve.
Well, I have an idea, but I want to hear what you say.
Public ownership in places where you have to opt in to go see it. Maybe you even have to get a little pass, and they write your name down.
Yeah, like when you buy Sudafed. Just give me your driver's license.
Yeah, and if you buy 30 boxes of Sudafed, then they start to get worried about why you're buying Sudafed. Same deal for if you're going to look at a lot of these pictures and flags and such.
I have it's not incompatible with this. There should be one Nazi shit museum.
Okay.
It should be in the middle of the desert, really hard to get to, but like the U.S. desert or something. Don't displace anybody. Further. It's got one of each thing. We destroy the rest of them. So there's one of each thing. Now, am I worried about the aura of these things growing because there's only one left? Yes, but I have a solution for this as well.
Okay.
A man named Walter Benjamin,
the Aura King,
says that if we take a bunch of pictures of each object, the aura will go away.
Yeah.
This is the problem with selfies. We're depleting our natural energies by photographing ourselves so much. No. But people shouldn't be allowed to have. People should not be allowed to have Nazi stuff. It's
nope. They should not.
In many cases, I hate to say it, it is a literal red flag.
True.
Have I said this before?
I don't know.
Am I going to be on the news for saying that?
Maybe.
So obviously, there's an overlap between young, poor, sexually marginalized people, substance abuse, and opportunities for abuse by rich, powerful people.
Yes. Yep.
It seems to me, well, it seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV.
I've been
It
saying
seems to me
this.
that Williams probably murdered Danny Hansford. They're all dead now, so it's fine for me to say this. He murdered the guy because he was sick of this guy turning up and embarrassing him at his fancy parties where he was trying to hobnob with the senator. But I don't know. How do you feel about, trying to get ahead by having sex with a rich guy?
Well, I'm certainly not opposed, at least in our current circumstances, to people,
Yeah.
for example, seeking out Findom style support. I will say that I watched a few and rewatched, in some cases, films in preparation for this. I rewatched Witness for the Prosecution. Wonderful. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Tyrone Power doing the kind of acting performance, multi-layered acting performance that I imagine KS was trying to do here. In that film, they do a good job of bringing up a bunch of stereotypes at sort of different levels or degrees, and then sort of like playing either into them or against them to guide you as an audience about what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this film is also doing that, maybe not quite as successfully or complexly, but I think what you're talking about here, the idea of saying, okay, who is in the wrong, or who are we inclined to believe? What does that say about us? What does that say about them? So to say, okay, they're both outsiders. One of them is an outsider with clearly more power, just, from straight up wealth, that old classic. And this other guy, a victim of abuse. Unfortunately, that also means people tend or frequently become abusive. Don't want to say tends, not a majority statistic or something, but not uncommon for people to turn around and become perpetrators of the same kind of violence they experience. And you have to ask, like you're saying, is it good to get ahead by taking advantage of the same marginalization that you suffered from? Is that a brave project? I think in the short term, I think very, very convincingly, yes, for me. In the long term, seems to be opposed to deconstructing those institutions or those power relationships.
That sounds good to me. You're right. Let's put it on the books.
Cool. All right. Great.
Quickly, couple of stray notes.
Yep.
First of all, I referred to The Flash earlier. There's a brief early appearance by Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville.
Man.
Yeah, Ian's a big Smallville fan. His first words were Kristin Kreuk. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my fascination.
He also voiced the Flash on Static Shock.
And the whole DC animated universe. I'm a big DCAU fan. It's a show for children made by people trying to make money, but I enjoy it as a product.
He seems like a fine guy. I don't know. Whatever. Another stray thought. The Mandy character is in the book. However, John Barrett is himself gay, which is, I think, an interesting...
I didn't know this aspect.
Complication.
Yeah.
The character in the Kelso character is not gay, although he's also not John Barrett. He's John Kelso.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, the Mandy character is the paramour of Joe Odom, although Joe Odom in real life was gay himself as well.
Oh, okay.
And the Mandy character, who again is played by Clint Eastwood's daughter, Allison Eastwood, who I would describe as a tall, thin woman, which is fine to be.
Yep.
In fact, many people like to be that.
Yep.
The character in the book describes herself as having recently gone to Las Vegas and won Miss BBW. And yes, it's
that's been around. Huh. Yeah, interesting. Didn't know that was in the lexicon.
So we haven't mentioned the adaptation. The screenplay here is by John Lee Hancock, our friend from A Perfect World days.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe Clint didn't read the book and didn't see that part, but I think it's funny to imagine Clint reading about the character of Miss BBW and thinking, my thin daughter should be this character.
Yeah. Who else special appearances by? If I can steal your role a little bit, I spotted my man has the first frame he was on screen. I said, now that is James Gandolfini as a cook with no lines.
James Gandolfini is very briefly in the film. You know what? When he got the call to be in the movie, he probably picked up the phone and said, who's this? You know, Tony says that.
May well have.
We've also got Bob Gunton as the prosecutor. Bob Gunton, it was recognizable to me. He originated the role of Juan Perón in Evita. I didn't
really?
recognize him from that.
Okay.
Yes. But he also
Shawshank Warden.
He's in a bunch of stuff. Yeah, he's in Shawshank Redemption. He's in Born on the 4th of July. He is in Jennifer 8, a movie I recommend because it's very strange. He's in Patriot Games, Demolition Man. He's all over the 90s, Ace Ventura and When Nature Calls. But more recently, he's also in Trouble with the Curve, the Clint film coming out.
Okay. Comes back.
Way down the line.
See him again.
Most recently, and speaking of necromancy, speaking of magic involving the dead and doing evil, he is the body onto which Harold Ramis's likeness is superimposed in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. So
weird.
He will not see heaven. He will not sit at the right hand of the Lord.
He's part of the exploitation of images by these filthy, greedy fat cats.
Yeah. And also Paul Hipp, who plays Joe Odom. He is the co-host of the Norman Lear podcast. Norman Lear, the 101-year-old podcaster.
Yeah.
We respect him.
He's very charming. Neither you nor I are big drinkers, but I gotta say the Southern style of drinking. He offers John Cusack's character a traveler, I think he calls it.
Yeah.
God, it's winning. It makes me want to have a nice view car, however you say those things.
I had a college friend who went to UNC Wilmington who had a relationship to drinking that is like we in talking, like, you know, the people kind of came back for the first Christmas or whatever, and we're all talking about our college experiences, and suddenly I found that this person had like a whole new language. There were all these words like, oh, you don't call them growlers in LA? I still don't remember what a growler is. They have all this stuff.
It's a container of beer. It's a large.
Everyone brings a koozie with them, like wherever they go. It's like your keys and your wallet and your phone and your koozie.
Okay.
Degenerates down there, all of them.
Yeah.
I do want to say one more thing. Transgender people have been around as long as people have been around.
Yes. There
are third sex people in the Indian subcontinent. There are two-spirit people among various indigenous groups in the Americas.
Musha is right here in Oaxaca.
Exactly. You've got there's a Roman emperor whose name escapes me. Elagabalus was their name, and this person, I think, biologically had a man's toolbox, but wanted to be called a lady, and I believe sought out gender reassignment surgery, ancient Roman style.
Wow.
Not sure how that went. Wouldn't want to go for that myself.
These guys are putting glass in toothpaste, so yeah.
We are all much luckier that we have more advanced methods. Do you have any sort of last stuff before we wrap up?
I do. I got a couple. Kim Hunter, Streetcar Named Desires, Stella is basically not really in the movie, but has been in so many incredible films.
Rogan and Franco, a couple of Kim Hunters in that film.
Yes.
You're the one who brought up the fucking hacker skull.
I did. You're right. I deserve this. You mentioned, I wasn't sure how to pronounce this. You did it with a lot of confidence. Seiler, the original lawyer from the case who appears on screen as the judge. Their family also, I think their law offices were in the original Cape Fear, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, Cape Fear is, I think, also in the Southern courtroom
Gothic law. Oh, yeah.
Cinematic universe, yeah.
And of course, we have an appearance by some napkin holders in the diner that say, "Have a Coke."
Oh, fuck. Thank you.
Baby.
Oh, forgot also Jeffrey Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Lucid Driggers, the guy with the flies attached to him.
Yep.
This was a real guy, but he, I think, was of the people involved in the people who appear in the book and the movie was, I think, like, it seems like one of the least
Yeah.
Please.
Seems like he's given too much screen time because we love Jeffrey Lewis, and that's okay.
We love Jeff, and he's got trained flies attached. Well, not trained; they're like glued
Just
to him.
normal. Yeah, just flies being flies. But Leon Rippey from Deadwood. I always got to do my Deadwood counts.
Yeah,
and I want to return very slightly to the actual content of the movie in case we have listeners who are younger than us, because I have built up some optimism based on how a lot of my students as a teacher, I've seen them talk about gay people in a very encouraging way.
mm-hmm.
I will say that you and I both grew up in the 1990s.
They said, "Go get after it."
Basically,
Go
yeah,
slurp
which
on
is
that
cool.
thing, whatever it looks like.
I think that's awesome. That's not what
it's
people
cool.
were saying. I want to say, in case we have listeners who are younger than us, at least for me, you can speak to your own experience. I grew up in liberal Bay Area. One of my closest friends, his mom, gay, wonderful woman. And there's sort of like a quiet acceptance of those people at school. The homophobic language was just hot and loose all over the place. I don't know if this was what happening for you.
You want to take that again?
Sure.
No, it's fine. Keep it in.
Okay. All right.
Hot and cold running slurs. I think maybe you're suggesting. Yeah, we had that too.
The major court cases around rights for gay or queer or transgender people happened after we were alive. AIDS was still very scary when we were children, and now I'm happy to report just a thing people live their whole lives with.
Spacey and Clinton and Epstein and Tucker.
That's right.
Speaking of Chris Tucker, I forgot to mention this, but I feel like literally any director but Clint Eastwood would have just cast Chris Tucker in a wig as the Lady Chablis at this time.
Yep, fair.
Or some other
extremely foolish mistake.
Foolish male performer doing a hate crime. Yeah. Chris Tucker, he's a hot take. Fifth Element, unwatchable due to Chris Tucker. I find Chris Tucker in that movie unbearably annoying. And also his connection to Spacey and Epstein and Clinton, and then the Luc Besson of it all, of course, also.
I believe I'm in the minority of people who just find that movie to be pretty good.
Okay.
It seems like everybody's either psycho for it or they hate it.
And you feel persecuted for this? You're like a persecuted minority?
I think I might be brave as well.
I think you might be. That's going to be our episode on the damn Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Oh, wait, shut up. I forgot to mention that. Did you see the part where he has rugs on top of his rugs? What the hell?
Is
that a thing people do?
Yeah, that's a thing people do.
You guys are all mixed up. We're going to wipe you out.
What are you, like Mexico?
Too much.
You're going to come up here?
Yep. We're coming up. You guys got money to put rugs on top of your rugs? Yeah.
You got the rug on rug. I do not like this. Professional singer. Cutting it out. That's going to be our episode on Midnight in the Garden and Good and Evil. Thanks for listening, everybody. Remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. It helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, write a novel about it in which you change everyone's name. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Podcasty4Me. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or you're interested in co-hosting a two-person Clint Eastwood podcast, you can email us at podcastyforme@gmail.com. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. Next week, we are finally going to find success because we will become a true crime podcast. We're covering Clint Eastwood's film.
Yep.
True Crime. We can just say who. Jesse Hawken joining us from
the
Junk Filter podcast.
Terrific guest. Really guest. Wonderful.
One of Toronto's finest. And Toronto has a lot of fine film podcasters. They're lousy with them up there. Now, if you're here in the States, you can watch that on all the usual places and also on Roku with ads. If you want to spend no money. Ian, someone's down there in Oaxaca. Where can they watch the film True Crime?
They can find it exactly where they found Midnight on Amazon, Microsoft, or Apple TV.
Mansana TV.
Who's this? No, this is sort of in the related thematically to the notion of like a mediated story.
This sounded like
Mansana TV.
A Futurama or Matt Groening-verse voice actor, Billy West.
So
who is this?
You're so close. You're so close.
Mansana TV.
This is the French narrator from SpongeBob. Tom Kenny.
Of course. If I had about 10 minutes to think about it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you so much to Ian for being on the show. And it's going to be hard to schedule any more of these. So probably the last one. Okay, bye.